China's agriculture is facing serious challenges that could jeopardize the country's food security in the coming years. The younger generation is increasingly turning away from farm labor, preferring to work in cities. This leads to the aging of the rural population. The bulk of farmers are now 40 to 50 years old and older. A natural question arises: who will provide the country with food in the future? Low incomes from agriculture and unfavorable market conditions discourage young people. Natural disasters often leave farmers barely able to feed themselves, let alone their families. Many agricultural parents are adamantly opposed to their children returning to this labor. As a result of the mass exodus of young people from the countryside, China is increasingly reliant on grain imports. The country's government recently announced a goal to significantly reduce its reliance on foreign purchases over the next decade. However, analysts doubt the achievability of this goal due to limited land, soil, and water resources. According to official plans, self-sufficiency in major cereals and pulses should reach 92% by 2033, down from 84% in 2021 to 2023. Imports of corn, wheat, and soybeans are projected to decline substantially. However, these targets are in stark contrast to the trend of the last decade, when grain and oilseed imports rose 87%. Industry experts believe it will be difficult for China to meet the targets due to limited land and water resources. Realizing the 10-year forecast will require a significant increase in agricultural productivity with the help of technologies such as genetically modified crops, as well as expansion of planted areas. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's projections differ sharply from Beijing's plans. Corn imports are expected to remain roughly at current levels, wheat imports are expected to decline by 20%, and soybean imports are expected to increase by 39%. The U.S. also predicts that China's demand for animal feed will outpace growth in domestic corn production, spurring increased imports of sorghum and barley. China is the world's largest importer of agricultural products. In 2023, grain imports will reach 160 million tons, up 11.7% year-on-year. This is the second time since 2021 that imports exceeded 160 million tons. Meanwhile, China's total grain production in 2023 was 695 million tons. Studies show that China could face a grain deficit of about 130 million tons between 2021 and 2025. The grain self-sufficiency rate is estimated at 86%, while the food self-sufficiency rate is only 70%. This is projected to fall further to 65% by 2035. The problem with soybeans is particularly acute. In 20 years, soybean self-sufficiency has fallen from 62.4% to 16.6%. China will import 99.4 million tons of soybeans in 2023, up 11% from a year earlier. This represents about 60% of global soybean exports. China's massive imports had a significant impact on global agriculture. Studies show that China's demand for food imports has led to a significant increase in global arable land and has been a major driver of global deforestation. China's grain imports are heavily dependent on several key countries. Brazil, 70%, and the US, 25%, are the main suppliers of soybeans. Wheat is mainly imported from Australia, Canada, and the US, China's geopolitical rivals. Corn comes mainly from Brazil, the US, and Ukraine. The Chinese government is also wary of possible disruptions in maritime trade routes. The sea route from Brazil to China passes through the Atlantic and Indian Oceans and the narrow Strait of Malacca, making it vulnerable to blockades. The strait is jointly administered by Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia, which have close defense ties to the United States. During the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine conflict, China faced risks of disrupting food supply chains, underscoring the urgency of reducing dependence on imports. In addition, the US-China trade war and climate impacts have exacerbated the challenges China faces. A large population and limited arable land means that China's per capita arable land area is significantly lower than Brazil and the US. According to 2021 World Bank data, China's arable land per capita is less than one-third that of Brazil. Much of China's farmland has been converted. In the past 10 years, about 5% of agricultural land has been lost to non-agricultural use, which is a serious problem for the country. In addition, the number of farmers in China has decreased in recent years due to urbanization. This shift has led to an increased dependence on imported grain. According to Chinese state media, China's agricultural production faces bottlenecks due to insufficient arable land, small-scale farming, and a lack of farmers and agricultural technology. To address these problems, Beijing has launched a plan to increase grain production by at least 50 million tons by 2030, focusing on upgrading farmland and investing in seed technology to improve crop yields and quality. In 2023, China expanded the area of uncultivated land and encouraged farmers to shift from cash crops to staple crops by increasing production of corn, soybeans, and rice. However, even though China is the world's second-largest corn producer and achieved record corn production of 289 million tons last year, corn imports still rose to a near-record 27 million tons. This is because traders prefer overseas corn, which tends to be of higher quality and lower cost. On June 1, China will enact a new food security law with 11 chapters and 74 articles covering various aspects of food security. State media reports that the enactment of this law is of great importance to the national food security strategy. Soil degradation and pollution have left China with little opportunity to expand arable land. The government often calls for the protection of fertile land and plans to complete a 4-year soil survey by 2025. The last survey in 2014 found that 40% of arable land was damaged due to overuse of chemical pesticides and heavy metal pollution. To address land scarcity, China has invested millions in water-intensive crops such as rice in desert regions such as Inner Mongolia and Xinjiang. Turning deserts into farmland and developing salt-tolerant crops are seen as ways to increase arable land. However, industry leaders say this strategy will require significant time and investment in fertilizer, irrigation, and biotechnology. China's agriculture is predominantly made up of small farms with an average size of 0.65 hectares, compared with 187 hectares in the United States and 60 hectares in Germany. These small farmers, many of whom are already of age, may not have the financial means or skills to adopt modern agricultural technologies such as spray drones, high-yield seeds, and data-driven farming methods. Beijing is turning to genetically modified crops to boost yields. This year, China approved high-yielding, pest-resistant varieties of GM corn and soybeans, as well as genetically edited disease-resistant wheat. China's soybean yields are only 2 tons per hectare, well below GM soybean yields in Brazil and the US, which are around 3.4 tons. Analysts say the goal of reducing soybean imports is unrealistic. Almost all of China's soybeans are used to produce high-protein products such as tofu. Replacing imports would require a rapid increase in production of high oil content varieties suitable for edible oil production. Carl Prey, a professor of agriculture at Rutgers University, told Reuters that China does not have enough land to produce enough soybeans to replace imports from Brazil and the United States, estimating that reliance on soybean imports would increase. He said demand for soybean imports could only be reduced from more than 80% to about 70%. He noted that China's food crisis has been a critical issue since April 2020, when the Politburo meeting emphasized the importance of food and energy security. The 20th Party Congress in 2022 further emphasized the need to strengthen the foundation of food security. Subsequent meetings have emphasized the importance of stable and secure supplies of food and key agricultural products. Xi Jinping recently introduced the term grand concept of food, emphasizing the need to obtain food from both land and sea. State media reported on April 21 that Xi emphasized the importance of ensuring a diverse food supply, including meat, vegetables, fruits, and seafood, along with grains. What is the grand concept of food? According to Xi Jinping, it means ensuring an efficient supply of a diverse food supply, including meat, vegetables, fruits, and seafood, along with staple grains. Xi emphasizes that all these food categories are important. Statistics show that China consumes 700,000 tons of grain, 98,000 tons of oil, 1.9 million tons of vegetables, and 230,000 tons of meat every day. Hang Yi, an American commentator on current events, argues that Xi Jinping's grand concept of food is meaningless and of no practical significance. He argues that the ability to meet people's needs since the establishment of the communist regime has been due to market liberalization, rather than planned economy measures, which have historically failed. He believes that solving China's food problems fundamentally requires a market economy and land privatization. At present, land ownership in China remains with the state and citizens only have use rights. The problem of privatization has not yet been solved. In recent years, local governments have become increasingly reliant on land finance, seizing large tracts of land for real estate development, leaving many lands abandoned. Urbanization has also reduced arable land, threatening food security. Qin Weiping, an independent economist, said in an interview with Radio Free Asia that the Chinese government's main concern is regime security, which is closely linked to food security. He warns that a serious food crisis could significantly affect regime stability. The repeated emphasis on food security in state media reflects serious problems in this area. Food safety problems are becoming increasingly prominent in China. Although the food safety law has been in effect since June 2009, a 2011 report by the China Journal of Food Hygiene showed that more than 94 million people fall ill from eating contaminated food each year, with about 8,500 deaths. Recent CCTV reports have highlighted numerous problems in the food industry, pointing to ongoing food safety issues. He believes that the Chinese government bears the main responsibility for food safety problems, citing its inability to fulfill regulatory duties and enforce laws. This is why food safety problems can never be solved in a society full of broader problems of legal non-compliance. Qin Weiping also criticizes the Chinese government's approach to food safety and security, suggesting that the focus remains on slogans rather than implementing practical, enforceable measures. In conclusion, the challenges of food security in China are multifaceted and require a comprehensive approach. It is necessary not only to increase production and improve the quality of agricultural products, but also to address the issues of land use, modernization of agriculture, and attracting young people to the agricultural sector. It is also important to pay attention to food safety and the development of sustainable agricultural practices. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you enjoyed the content, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue to create informative and relevant content. We wish you a good day and hope to see you in future videos.